Imagine a dusty town at the edge of nowhere. The saloon doors swing open. Silence falls. Everyone expects to see a rugged cowboy walk in. But instead, it's a woman. Gun on her hip, fire in her eyes, and a bounty on her head. History remembers the Wild West as a man's world. Outlaws, sheriffs, duels at high noon. But hidden in the shadows of legend are women who were just as deadly, just as bold, and just as unforgettable. They didn't just live in the Wild West. They ruled parts of it. This is the story of the women gunslingers, fearless, cunning, and often more dangerous than the men they rode with. And trust me, once you hear what they did, you'll wonder why history tried so hard to forget them. Part 1. Calamity Jane, the Wild Spirit. Her real name was Martha Jane Cannery, but nobody dared call her that. She was known as Calamity Jane, a name earned not for causing disaster, but for surviving it. Born into poverty and orphaned as a teenager, she had no choice but to survive on her own terms. She became a scout for the U.S. Army, wore men's clothes, smoked cigars, drank whiskey like water, and could shoot better than most men. Jane roamed the frontier during the Indian Wars, often on horseback with a rifle in hand. She claimed to have saved a wounded General Custer. She rode with Wild Bill Hickok, and reportedly loved him until the day he died. But Calamity Jane wasn't just tough, she was complicated. Between saloon fights and gun duels, she also took care of the sick, helped the poor, and raised orphan children. She was both feared and loved. By the time she died in 1903, she had become a legend. And in an ironic twist of fate, she was buried next to Wild Bill, just as she had always wished. Part 2. Belle Starr, the Bandit Queen. If Calamity Jane was the soul of the Wild West, Belle Starr was its dark heart. Born Myra Maybelle Shirley, Belle grew up during the Civil War in Missouri. She was raised in a wealthy, educated family. But when the war tore everything apart, she chose the outlaw life. She married a notorious bandit, Jim Reed, and later rode with Jesse James and the Younger Gang. Belle wasn't just along for the ride. She was organizing horse thefts, fencing stolen goods, and bribing lawmen. She was called the Bandit Queen, and her name was whispered across Texas and Indian Territory. She wore black velvet dresses, rode side saddle with twin pistols, and commanded respect or fear wherever she went. Even the law couldn't keep up with her. She was arrested multiple times, but always managed to escape serious punishment, often using charm and wit as weapons just as sharp as her guns. Her end came mysteriously. In 1889, Belle was ambushed and shot in the back, possibly by a jealous lover, a rival outlaw, or even her own son. To this day, her murder remains unsolved. But her legend? Immortal? Part 3. Annie Oakley, the Bullet Whisperer. She never robbed a train. She never shot a sheriff. But she could hit the center of a playing card while riding a horse, with her eyes closed. Annie Oakley was the greatest sharpshooter the West had ever seen. Born into poverty in Ohio, Annie began hunting as a child to feed her family. By 15, she was entering shooting contests and winning. She defeated professional marksmen twice her size and age, including the man who would become her husband. Together, Annie and Frank Butler joined Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, and that's when the myth began. Annie could shoot dimes out of the air, split a bullet on the edge of a knife, and light matches with a single shot. Crowds around the world were stunned. Even royalty came to see the girl they called Little Sure Shot. But Annie wasn't just a performer. She was a revolutionary. She trained thousands of women in gun safety, advocated for equal rights, and proved time and again that talent had no gender. While she wasn't a criminal like Belle or Jane, she shattered every stereotype about women and guns. And in her quiet way, she changed the world. Part 4. Pearl Hart, the Last Outlaw. If there was ever a true gunslinger woman out of a dime novel, it was Pearl Hart. Born in Canada, Pearl was a preacher's daughter turned rebel. After a troubled marriage, she ran away to the American Southwest and quickly embraced the outlaw life. In 1899, Pearl and her partner Joe Boot held up a stagecoach in Arizona, one of the last recorded stagecoach robberies in the country. Dressed as a man with a revolver in hand, Pearl took the loot and famously gave each passenger a little money back, so they could get home. She was caught not long after and became an overnight media sensation. Newspapers across the country couldn't get enough of the Lady Bandit. She posed for photos, gave interviews, and even used her trial as a stage to critique society's treatment of women. Pearl was sentenced to prison, but even behind bars, she charmed the public. She was eventually pardoned and disappeared into legend, her exact fate unknown. Some say she ran a tavern, others say she joined a traveling circus. Whatever the truth, Pearl Hart was one of the last true outlaws of the Old West, and one of the boldest. Part 5. Why these stories matter. The Wild West wasn't just bar fights, train robberies, and dusty duels. It was a time of survival, of frontier justice, and of people living outside every rule society ever wrote. And these women, they rewrote those rules. They didn't ask for permission. They didn't wait for a man to ride in and save them. They carved out their own legacies, with bullets, grit, and sheer force of will. Their stories weren't taught in school, were buried under myths written by men. But now they're rising again, louder, bolder, and more inspiring than ever. In a world that still doubts what women can do, the pistoleras of the Wild West remind us they always could. So the next time you think of the Wild West, don't just picture a dusty cowboy riding off into the sunset. Because the West wasn't just wild, it was wide open, and these women made it their own. If this story stirred something in you, if these women moved you, then Dan T let their stories vanish again. Share this video. Let their names echo louder than the gunshots they once fired. And if you want more forgotten legends, untold truths, and real history that hits harder than any movie ever could, hit subscribe now. This isn't just about the past, it's about rewriting the future, one badass story at a time.